one of our audience members, TRZZ underscore, but they asked, what is the most effective advice you've ever gotten to help your scatting? Because I think one of the things is, like I was touching on earlier, there's a way to go about it that feels inauthentic when we see it, and then there's a way to really own it. And I think that's kind of what they're getting at, is how can they really up the scatting so it's not, it's treated as killer as any horn player or anything out there.
Honestly, it's just, I'm sorry if the person's expecting some deep, dark secret that's going to answer all the universe's questions, right? It's going to be this, but it's so simple as just listen more. Listen. I mean, and even if, and I don't know, TRZ, what?
Don't worry about it. Chris.
They may just well be listening to like everything they get their hands on. But in my experience with people who ask those kind of questions, they don't listen enough. And it's mostly like, oh, I listened to Ella and Mel. Okay, have you ever heard of Kenny Pancho Haygood? Have you ever heard of Eddie Jefferson? Oh no. Just dig deeper. And the more you listen, the more you can and transcribe and I don't mean transcribe like writing down and stopping every 5 seconds. I mean like orally, like.
Yeah, you did. I saw you posted. You sang one of your favorites, the Mel Torme solo, and.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, and I think, and this was one of the other questions we got asked, is how to improve your ability to improvise, because I think a lot of people come to singing, they can sing, but the improv aspect of it is like a whole other world. And yes, maybe they can imitate someone else's vocal solo, but I think...
Well, imitation is good because in the beginning when you're developing your sound, imitation is important, really key to finding your sound, because once you've gotten like, okay, I've got the Anita thing, I've got the Mel thing, I got the Nat King Cole thing, then it's crazy. It just naturally happens. These sounds congeal together and then you find your own way to express them, and then your own sound too within that. So I think imitation should not be avoided. It's just when you make that your thing, that's when because then, like I say, imitation leads to emulation. But then it's the singers like on a record or something where they just literally, it just sounds like poor man's Ella Fitzgerald. That's what we don't want, right? But there's practicing and then there's executing, right? So practice singing like Ella and matching that sound and that tone and that vibrato. But then when you go out to do it in real life, it's a different discipline,
Well, when you worked on the improv side of things, like I think this is a little bit more interesting because you also play, you're an instrumentalist as well. You have that under your belt.
It's key. You've got to understand at least piano.
Yeah.
And for me, I played trumpet first. And what I found naturally, what I was doing, I was learning how to improvise on trumpet. So like, let's say I'm like 10 or 11, I'm learning around the circle of fourths and fifths. I'd take a lick that I like ba ba do ba dee ba do ba. Let's just take that like a little lick, and then I'd play it around the circle of fourths, ba ba do da dee ba do da, ba ba boo ba ba do ba dee ba do ba. Right, and I hear the intervallic relationships, and I see them and feel them. But then I just applied that to my singing, and so then I would practice enough where I could, change tonal centers just like that. And it'd be like and then do it around the circle of fifths. And this little exercise just kind of got me to the next level to be able to adjust, especially with songs that have like chord changes that change.
There's key centers throughout the song.
Like Arrogant is one of my favorites to give to my students and my friends who want good changes to, like challenging chord changes, but still just bebop. And what was the question? I just kind of rambled there.
You nailed it. I guess my question was, I understand like the oral tradition of like basically just basically taking what you're hearing and trying to emulate it. That was key. But on the improv side, I just was curious because I think a lot of singers can hear, but you're telling me
Yeah.
what you're basically saying is like what I was trying to get at is you took a lick, you really broke it down, and you would shed it just like any other instrumentalist. You would shed that idea in a more of a in a more specific fashion than, oh, I've just done so much. I mean, that'll help, but you also did the shedding side of things vocally.
Yeah. And vocalists have a hard time in music schools too, where they're trying to integrate the vocal and instrumental programs, which is great.
Yeah.
And they're like putting vocalists like in a Wayne Shorter ensemble, and they're not even singing they're singing wordless things. That's cool. But I think the method to introduce a singer into improvisation, because in music schools, a lot of singers are coming from pop or classical, where they don't, what's a 7 chord or something.
Yeah, it's a lot of they're lacking
what's
the
a
theory knowledge.
5/5?
They're lacking the theory knowledge, so we can't even talk about it. Yeah.
Exactly. I think there's a fine line. Like, we go wrong when we introduce someone to the theory first. It's particularly a vocalist who uses all ears, pretty much. There's no mechanical thing that's tangible that you can see or feel. I mean, you can have muscle memory, but it only takes you so far. So as a vocalist, if you have never improvised, to start with theory and not ear training is, I think, a mistake. I think you just find someone, when you're starting out, you find someone who you admire and want to scat like, and just like learn their solos, and also instrumental solos. Like, a lot of vocalists won't check out instrumental. That's changing now because of Instagram and all this, this craze with transcribing and singing. I'm super digging it, because I'm like, damn, I've never seen this before. But who were the singers listening to when it came to scatting, like instrumentalists?
Yeah, they're imitating instruments. Yeah.
So take it when you're starting out. Take an instrumentalist who plays like a singer, like a Lester, who's like, or Lester Young, Ben Webster, Chet Baker, and especially Chet, because he was a singer. So.
Well, those are great suggestions. I mean, like you said, it's not like there is some deep dark secret. It's just the fundamentals
Yeah.
over and over. Believe me, we get the same questions, and I have to be like, it's what you don't want to hear, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just years of doing that too. I mean, like, a lot of people have the misconception that my career kind of happened overnight. I've been at it since I was 9. Some people know, some people don't, and it's been like 16 years of just that, listening and digging and exposing myself to things I don't like even, but finding what I can learn from that. I hate to, I'm not very like, see, Emmett's the more eloquent one of us. That's why I sing. I get paid to sing. I don't get paid to talk. But